Hello there, Commonwealth from here. We recently discussed the Cut Light Temple from Ocarina of Time, explaining how this dungeon could potentially return in this rumored remake. This also made us think a lot about the Zelda dungeons of old, as the open air don't really feel like traditional dungeons. It makes us think what else could come back from the Zelda of old while not inflicting or changing too much of the Zelda of new. So be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press notification bell, and let's get into it. After Skyward Sword in 2011, Nintendo went on a quest to change conventions of 3D Zelda. Thus, we got Breath of the Wild in 2017, and a tailor-made, boundless open air of Hyrule to run, climb and glide in. This level of freedom was unprecedented in this franchise, giving players the option to speedrun the game and go straight to the final boss once they departed the Great Plateau, and this philosophy has in many ways been doubled down and also expanded upon in Tears of the Kingdom, with a lot of new gameplay possibilities added. As revolutionary as these ideas were, they came at the cost of some of the Zelda series' most defining and beloved features, such as deep, intricate dungeons, iconic item with Metroidvania-style progression, and a story that evolves with the player from start to finish. These elements were greatly missed in Breath and Tears, and we believe there is multiple ways to bring these back in future Zelda games without sacrificing too much of the open air.
Before we continue, let's get one thing straight. We are not asking Nintendo to stop making open-air Zelda games and go back to the traditional linear style. This would be foolish, as the open-air games are highly praised and are the best-selling in the series by a large margin. Not only would it be financially irresponsible to go back, but it would definitely feel like a regression of the formula. Though there is stuff we miss about the Zeldas of old, we don't miss everything. And there was a lot that Breath and Tears remedied from those older games, such as long tutorials, chatty NPCs, and slow pacing overall. Breath and Tears don't have these problems, and we hope future Zeldas continue this trend, but this time with features from old Zelda games that we've been missing. Believe it or not, it is possible to keep the new and old fan bases happy with a balance of ideas. Let's start with the dungeons, as the ones in Breath and Tears have been, well, polarizing to say the least.
Some wouldn't even be calling them dungeons, as Divine Beasts from Breath suffer in their looks and uninteresting bosses, but functionally, they were quite incredible, as they could completely change shape for additional gameplay elements. The ones in Tears, however, looked way better and had more diverse bosses, but despite being presented as temples, they still had pretty much the same objectives as the Divine Beasts, which are finding 5 switches to unlock the boss. Our solution for this is simple. Just make these dungeons linear again. Give them set pathways, puzzles that have to be done in a specific order, all to reach the boss at the end. Simply put, these dungeons are at their best when they're designed with focus. While the puzzles themselves could have some freedom in their solutions, what matters is that the order within the temples themselves is completed in a predetermined fashion. And that's right, pathways should be locked by doors in which you will have to find keys to unlock them. Now, these keys are only found in a few shrines in Breath and Tears, and we really miss seeing them in temples or dungeons. And since we're talking about keys, boss keys, we have really been missing them now for quite a while. And the reason for why we have been missing them might be a little bit surprising. It's their uniqueness. Every 3D Zelda game, for the most part at least, had unique boss keys, and reaching these were always one of the highlights before battling the boss of the temple. It was the proof that you have conquered this challenge, now only make it back to that massive door. Plus, they were incredible tools of marketing as well, as some of the best Zelda merchandise is actually dungeon boss keys, usually with that sus eye representing the foe that you're about to face. Plus, there's another advantage in making this linear. True and proper mini-bosses. There's truly no better indicator for when you're halfway done or at least making some solid progress in a dungeon, and defeating them rewards you with a brand new item that is required to beat not only the dungeon, but in a way the game itself.
Items like these are greatly missed in the Wild era, despite the best efforts to try and replace them with Sheikah and Zonai abilities. They work well, but they're all acquired at the very beginning, unlike the items in previous Zelda games that would unlock other parts of the map. So yes, like a Metroidvania. Or Zeltroid, I don't know. In Breath and Tears, the only items you gain after completing a dungeon are abilities from the champions and sages that aid traversal and combat. It's understandable why the traditional Zelda items were replaced by these in the open-air games, because the former are tough to implement in a game that revolves around complete freedom from the start. But you know, there's actually great potential for these items to work in an open setting. Take the hookshot and or claw shots for example. They could help you get around easier by attaching to any surface, similar to Just Cause in Halo Infinite. And acquiring these in the middle of a dungeon designed around them would make them even more rewarding to use. An item like the Lens of Truth could also change how you explore the open world, by finding hidden areas that were previously inaccessible simply because you couldn't see them. These items easily have a place in the new 3D Zelda games, being tools that make exploration that much easier. The open worlds in Breath and Tears were completely accessible from the moment you jumped off their tutorial islands, but we believe it's okay to have some areas locked behind certain items, or at the very least, much harder to get to without them. But you know what the next Zelda game really needs back from the old 3D titles? Minigames. Not to say Breath and Tears don't have them, they're just not as interesting as they used to be. A lot of them have Link racing against the clock and not another person like he did before. It would be much more exciting to have him race against someone else on horseback rather than compete in a solo obstacle course. The Witcher 3 was a great example of how to do this in an open world setting, racing within various villages and forests. Being in direct competition with an NPC brings up the stakes of these minigames, and basically gives us players someone to hate if we keep losing. While we're on the subject of minigames, why hasn't fishing returned? Sure, we can now grab fish with spears in our bare hands, but that's not nearly as fun as using a fishing rod. While it would be fun to do this at any point while exploring, it could make for another exciting minigame, competing with someone trying to catch more fish. Just be careful not to hook a Zora. Ouch. Moving on to the story, as this is perhaps the most fatal flaw of both Breath and Tears.
Maybe not so much the story itself, but more of the storytelling. And obviously it ties to the fact that players can tackle the main quest objectives in any order, though there is a given order. Because of this, the story suffers, as the events in each province feel isolated from one another. This was especially felt in Tears of the Kingdom, where the events seen in the cutscenes didn't even take place where you located the Tears. And don't get me started on this was the imprisoning war being told over and over again because the game simply doesn't know which dungeon you have visited or not. What's worse is that the linear parts of the story are told in unplayable flashbacks scattered throughout the world. This makes the disconnect even bigger for the player, as they're not even playing the most important parts of the story. Instead, that is being saved for higher rewards. Let's face it, this storytelling method simply does not work, and it is time to bring back a little bit more linearity. The best stories are told in the present, and the memory formula has really dumbed down the quality of storytelling in The Legend of Zelda. And also, there should be a little bit more linearity when it comes to the main quest. Not necessarily of the dungeon order, but at least when it comes to certain beats and events. Echo of Wisdom in many ways found a happy medium, as the story had linear progression, but some of the main quests were split off so the player could decide which dungeon to do first. It was a great way to keep a set path while still giving some player freedom. But there's another example of this going back to 2013, which may be even better, A Link Between Worlds. This might have been the stepping stone to figure out non-linear Zelda, as nearly each dungeon could be completed in any order by visiting a shop to get the item needed to access it. It was a bold take on the classic formula to get the dungeon item well before the dungeon, and in that case renting it before buying it. The dungeon item rental system was a good one, but it will most likely not be repeated in a future Zelda game, and definitely not open air game. Echoes of Wisdom's methods might be the best way to bridge the gap between linear and non-linear storytelling. What matters most though is that our protagonist is present throughout the entire story, all 100 years or even thousands of years after the most significant events. Instead of just concluding events, we the players need to be there for those impactful moments. No question, it is time to get rid of the memories and give us an organic, active story in the next Zelda game. We, as Link, should shape the story, not conclude one that happened 100 or who knows how far back in the distant past.
Another issue with the stories in these games is that they don't suffer any setbacks at the hands of our villain Ganon. So in that sense, his presence is never really felt until the very end of each game. The one exception is in Tears, where his dry bones resurrect and he destroys the Master Sword along with Link's arm. After that, we don't see him outside of flashbacks until the finale. Sure, there's that instance with Phantom Ganon in the throne room, but the new stages made sure there wouldn't be another setback from him. Overall, the stories in these games just move along at a steady but dull pace, with only the most impactful moments happening in flashbacks and the final battles. No question, it's time for Zelda stories to return to their old format, linear and set almost entirely in the present. If no time travel is involved, of course. However, most of the old Zelda games had very long intros set at Link's home settlements like Outset Island and Skyloft. We don't need these to be drawn out again in future Zelda stories, and that's something the open-air games have fortunately gotten right. So yes, there are a lot of aspects from the traditional Zelda games that can naturally evolve into the open-air ones, while still maintaining a level of freedom. And we want to know what you think should return in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching until the very end, and be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and press that notification bell for more Zelda videos every week.
Last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching, and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to our heroes, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf, and Gintaro. You rock, and please enjoy these two awesome videos.